Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to The Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
In just a matter of seconds, you're going to hear a classic episode of this show from back in the day when we called ourselves Movies We Like.
It took us a while to settle into the show's format, so you'll notice some differences as you listen to these episodes. For instance, it takes us a bit of time to actually get into the conversation about the movie. Things like that.
But we're still proud of the conversations about the movies themselves, and we think they're worth keeping in the library.
So enjoy these episodes from our back catalog. And you can become part of our Discord community, learn more about the show, and find out how you can become a supporting member at thenextreel.com.
So thank you, everybody, for downloading and listening to The Next Reel. We appreciate your time and attention, and we hope you enjoy the show. "10 Cloverfield Lane," Andy.
Jeez.
I know. I only
How
just
long ago did that come out? Like
months.
2 years ago?
2 years? Let's not be gross. No.
All right,
It's
2 months.
It's a couple of months. I finally got around to seeing it, and so now I know the whole thing. And, you know, we spoil movies, so there it is. I got to tell you, first of all, in terms of a mini review, there were some things that I liked.
Yeah.
And I did. I did not like that it was in the Cloverfield universe. I think I would have liked it much better the more I kind of reflect on it if it was still called The Cellar and it was treated as original IP. Like I would have been a better movie for me.
But here's the thing. It's not really in the Cloverfield universe. I mean, it's in the Cloverfield universe by name, but nothing about it ties it to the first film.
I know,
Nothing.
except for when you start watching the filmmakers talk about it and they start opening this little can of multiverse worms that, maybe this is also in the same multiverse where there are monsters and maybe they're connected and oh my goodness, like it's out there. It's out there that there is a possibility that somewhere in the narrative these could be connected. Even though, of course, I don't know, when did Cloverfield come out? 2006, 2, 9er?
60, are you a truck driver now? 629er.
Niner. It was in there. It was a decade ago.
It came out 2008.
2008, so almost a decade ago. And clearly, Cloverfield Lane is not a film in which monsters exist because they looked pretty surprised at the end. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like that was a surprising thing. And yet I have this ugly feeling that there is someone out there who's going to try and connect these things together, and that's going to bug me. I think they did a pretty good job. I feel like it was a little bit out of balance with the end. It was a bit too much of a twist at the end, and I really liked the thriller stuff in the bunker. And I could have used that just being resolved on its own. So, it was fine. I wanted to love it. I think that's why I stalled on seeing it, because it just didn't move me like I wanted to be moved. I wanted to be moved, Andy.
I can see what you're saying. I don't think it bugged me as much as you did. I thought it was just kind of a fun romp, but I guess I didn't watch any of the behind-the-scenes stuff to see all the multiverse connections and whatnot. I just enjoyed it for what it was.
Don't.
And I won't,
And
mister.
how? Do you have any news?
Nothing I'm going to share with you.
Shall we tell the people where we're from?
Where are we from?
This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there is Andy Nelson.
Hey.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, the first in our vacation challenge, in which I bring forth ParaNorman. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us over at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app, or join us over on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And Andy, we got a little follow-up with The Blot Spot.
That's right. Ben says, The Great Escape is a film I'm confident will improve, in my opinion, on a rewatch. It was good the first time, but the overall experience fell short of great because I had false expectations of a happy ending. I didn't know the history beforehand. I love the acting performances, and I can absolutely see why this is a classic that people love. Your rank 59, my rank 49. Which is great to hear that it's so high on his list, and he's still confident that it's actually going to improve for him. So there it is.
Andy, it's time. Let's do trailers. I can't. We're like, this is a bottom of the barrel week. Is that what it is?
We're hitting a point where it's getting a little tough with the trailer selection.
Jeez.
I feel like it's like, I'm struggling trying to find something that I want to talk about.
I know. I was actually surprised you haven't picked the Moana.
Moana? Well, because it's just a teaser. I know. Just like the Tom Hanks, Da Vinci Code Part 3. I want to wait till there's a full trailer.
Yeah. All right. Feels like, that's like a minute and a half. It's a trailer enough.
It's only a tease.
All right. Well, anyway, I can't believe you are bringing forth the Wahlberg.
Well, I know you love him so much, Pete.
I love him in some stuff. Bright shining boy. So go ahead. What's your trailer?
So I'm doing Deepwater Horizon. That's right. Deepwater Horizon. We're down to that. No, I don't want to poo-poo this movie. It's based on a true story. Obviously, it was quite a situation. Peter Berg is directing this film, and it's based on the true story of the oil rig Deepwater Horizon when it kind of went up in flames and everybody on board had to figure out what to do. Screen story is by Matthew Sand, written by Matthew Sand and Matthew Michael Carnahan, starring Mark Wahlberg, Dylan O'Brien, Kate Hudson, Kurt Russell, Gina Rodriguez, John Malkovich. It's quite a decent cast of these people as Mark Wahlberg, who is trying to find a dinosaur bone for his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I love how they kind of come up with the little story thing there. Is trying to figure out what the heck to do when the worst oil spill in U.S. history, when Deepwater Horizon, the rig, exploded April 2010. And, it looks exciting. It looks interesting. It also looks kind of like every kind of true story hero journey that I've seen on celluloid before. And so it's like, I guess that's my issue with it. It doesn't look like it's anything new. I think that I could very easily say I would probably sit and watch this and not have any issues with it. But, I'm not going to run out and chase it down either. So I guess that's where I stand with this one. It looks interesting. It looks like an interesting story about this accident that happened. I'm sure it would be, interesting to watch. I just am, I'm like, okay, well, if it's on TV, I'll watch it. I'll rent it. I don't think it's something I'll run out to theaters for, but that's my trailer. I guess I don't have much more to say about it. What did you think of it?
Wow.
Really, I'm selling it this week, huh?
Really selling it. Did you see Lone Survivor?
I missed that. That was another one that falls into the same camp.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then
it looks like something it might be.
Peter Berg's next film, of course, is Patriots Day, which is the story
Boston bombing.
Boston
Marathon bombing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm more interested to see that because I worked on the TV movie version of that.
Yeah.
Inside the Hunt for the Boston Bombers.
Yeah. So for me, it feels very much like the Wahlberg-Berg partnership is they have a thing with these kinds of movies and telling these stories. The trailer, the effects are, I think, what's going to be, that's going to be why you see it. I think it's going to be a gorgeous movie about fire.
It's going to put you right in there.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to be in places that, although I had a little bit of trouble kind of separating this film from Man of Steel when the rig, falls apart and there's flame and falling steel. Like I wasn't sure from the trailer how much better things have gotten in the last 5-6 years. So I don't know. I guess I'm a little bit ambivalent on it too. I saw the trailer came up when we saw Now You See Me Too during for that one for this film Deepwater Horizon, and both of my kids interestingly were right on top of it. They want to see it like nobody's business. What's that about? What is that about?
It's true story of a hero.
All right. Well, there you go. When's it come out?
This one rolls out here in the U.S. September 30th. It actually starts, it looks like it's going to premiere in the Philippines September 28th. And then it'll pretty much everywhere it's releasing by the end of September, except for Italy, France, and Japan, who have to wait through October and November.
My trailer, Andy, I'm stepped back several weeks for this trailer, and I'm a little surprised I haven't talked about it yet. Assassin's Creed. Now, are you gaming any at all these days?
Not really.
I know you, though. If the right circumstances were to arise, you would disappear for weeks. You could be gone.
The reason I don't is because, you'll never see me again.
Yeah, no, it's in you. It's in you, Andy.
It's there.
It's there. So I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed series. I really like these games. I have had so much fun running around these meticulously crafted, classical cities. I deeply enjoy it. I enjoy the fighting. I enjoy everything about it. I've had a ball in this series. I play with my kids. It's great. And so when I heard Assassin's Creed was going to be made into a movie, I was really disappointed because I thought they're going to break it. They're going to break it. It's going to be ruined forever. And then I saw that, goodness, how did they get Michael Fassbender? What?
Right.
He's playing. I don't know. He's playing the assassin, Marion Cotillard. How about Jeremy Irons? How about Brendan Gleeson? How about Michael Kenneth Williams? Andy, is this the great simultaneous sellout of the year? Is that what has happened? All of these actors and actresses have decided we're just going to phone it in on the same movie. It's happened.
It really is strange. I don't even know what to say about the fact that they're all in it. Except, I hope they enjoyed the script. Maybe they just all play the game and are like, oh, this will be a fun one. I mean, there have been big disasters with a lot of A cast in it before. So, this could be another one.
There's some things that are going for it. Justin Kurzel is the director, and he did Macbeth, 2015's Macbeth, which did you see this one?
Nope.
Worth seeing. Definitely worth seeing. Bill Collage, and Adam Cooper as writers. They did, Exodus, Gods and Kings. They're a team, and so they've got Tower Heist and Accepted and Allegiant. They're on the Allegiant team. So they've got probably 10 credits each of them under their belts, but they're not complete noobs. Neither is Justin Kurzel, and this cast is pretty great. So all of that added to the fact that it's based on a really fun property.
I think Jeremy Irons is hoping it's his next Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, Jesus. It's not Dungeons. It's Dungeons and Dragons is sort of old news. What he's really thinking is the next, what was it, the more recent one, Carvajal, and it was another dragon one. You don't remember what I'm talking about?
I don't know. And Brendan Gleeson's like, maybe, following up Smurfs 2, I need another fun one to jump into.
Andy, you just make everything worse.
I'm just trying to temper expectations here.
You're doing a good job. You're saying, inner child, get in the box. Get in the box. Get in the box. Aragon is what I'm thinking.
There you go. If I were offered the chance to be in Dungeons and Dragons back then, I probably would have done it too.
In a heartbeat. Yes, you would have.
Sean Connery probably thought, what was the one? The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen looked like a fun one too.
Yes.
I'll shut up now.
Yes, you should. You see what I mean, though, about the grand collective sellout? It could be Assassin's Creed this year. We will know on December 21st, 2016 in the U.S. Merry Christmas. Could be a failure. It is a grand, broad, wide open international release starting on December 21st. We've got a couple of unknown dates, Indonesia, Portugal, Spain, and South Africa, but the 21st kickstarts the worldwide release through Argentina January 19th. So it's coming. It's coming big. It's coming IMAX. They're doing the whole circuit.
I hope it kills at the box office.
Meet Norman.
Can't you be like other kids your age?
His parents don't get him.
He's probably up there fiddling with his Ouija or his orb.
Harry.
His sister doesn't like him.
You are such a loser.
And the kids at school
Look, it's Abnorman.
always pick on him. But he does have some friends.
Norman, wait up. I like to be alone. So do I. Let's do it together.
It's just that most of them
Good morning.
aren't exactly alive.
How's it hanging?
Haven't heard that one before.
You see ghosts all the time? Who's a good boy? That's not his chin.
From the makers of Coraline,
The witch's ghost is going to wake up tonight. And when she does, she'll raise the dead.
you've got to use your gift of talking to the dead to stop it.
This is crazy.
Do I look crazy to you?
There's nothing wrong with being scared, Norman. So long as you don't let it change who you are.
ParaNorman, Andy, 2012. A misunderstood boy takes on ghosts, zombies, and grown-ups to save his town from a centuries-old curse. This one comes as part of our Vacation Challenge series.
That's right.
While you are listening to this, Andy and I are taking some time off, so howdy from the lake. That's what this is. And you had challenged me for this vacation challenge to come up with a film that I love that showcases the best in stop motion animation. And I looked everywhere to do that. I almost did Peter Gabriel's Sledgehammer, Andy.
That would have been a very
I know
short...
it probably wouldn't have fit, but short show, but, Peter Gabriel.
Yeah. We could have done a frame by frame.
That's right. We could have done a whole podcast series.
That's right.
We should have done that, a spin-off series, a frame-by-frame analysis of Sledgehammer. Probably be a hit.
Coming soon.
Stop motion is a funny thing, and just in kind of reading up on stop motion, it's a fascinating art form in itself. Historically, we talked about some of the very early stop motion when we first announced this challenge, and it really was an art form in Europe. It was a foundational tool of storytelling, leading out of the late 1800s into the 1900s, whereas the U.S. was really much more defined by straight up cell animation, right? And stop motion in the U.S. had been shoved into the visual effects department, right? That's where we get the Harryhausen, and we get we get some of the great early film works of stop motion, and so that sort of bifurcation of the art form really is really telling, and you can kind of see how the European use of stop motion kind of evolved as a storytelling tool, and not just as a utility player, as we saw it in the foundational years of visual effects. And I think that's really interesting. I think it's a stunning art form myself. I think it takes an incredible mental agility to maintain not just the mathematics of frame computation, and capturing the right number of frames, but the right speed of action to achieve weight and velocity by hand as you're moving these little creatures, just these little increments, minute increments at a time. That is mind-bending to me. I cannot fathom it. And to be able to do it in such a way as to capture, really life in these things and sort of luminance, I think is a pretty special talent. So that's what led me back to Laika. I mean, I think these guys are doing some of the very best work technically and artistically right now in the field. It's pretty easy to say because there aren't a whole lot of people who are really doing this. And, Travis Knight, the CEO of Laika, says, the odds have really never been tilted in our favor, but, here we are. Why would we do this in stop motion? It is the hardest, most complicated form of animation there is, but we do it because we love it. And that, I think, is really clear when you look at a film like ParaNorman and like any of the films that they do out of Laika. And they're right down the street from my house.
Laika is actually the predecessor to Will Vinton Studios. In the late 90s, they were trying to find some more funds to do movies and went to investors, including Nike's owner, Phil Knight, who invested, and his son Travis started working as an animator. And then, in 2002, he acquired the company. And so Phil Knight is the co-founder and chairman. And his son is the president and CEO.
I think they're incredible. I know they're building. I've driven past it however many, countless times, and I've never knew that they were in it.
Now you know, and now you can stalk them.
I'm totally going to start. Get ready, Laika. I'm coming.
That's awesome.
Speaking then of ParaNorman, I think this film is great. And in researching it, I was really excited about all the other people that I thought were going to really like it. And there are so many people who don't. And it made me mad.
I don't get that.
I know.
This is a really strong film. The story, I think, is really clever. I think that they made a really interesting choice in making kind of a Goosebumps type of horror film for kids. I mean, they have zombies, they have witches, they have ghosts. It's really creepy, but it's all at a level that I think it is a little creepy for kids. But I don't know. Based on my own children, it's not too scary for them. Like they can get into it without crossing a line into out and out horror and nightmares. It's not that place. And Coraline was also kind of there Although it was, when that one came out, my kids were younger, and I was like, what, I don't think I can take my daughter to this one until she's a little older, because she was 3 at the time. It's like, I don't think she'll.
That's a little
young. But it's just one of those things where I think that the people putting this project together really found a nice way to kind of take this the artistry of stop motion animation and put it forth in a really unique story that kind of also felt like it was part of something in the past. And the stop motion techniques already kind of have that feel a little bit. And I think kind of going for that a little bit of that 50s horror vibe, I think it was kind of a nice blend of seeing all of this working together in this wonderful story.
Have you ever worked on a stop motion project at all? Have you ever done anything in stop motion?
I've never done it. It takes an incredible amount of patience. I've had some students who have done it, and they start and then they realize how difficult it is, and they never end up going for nearly as long as they need to in order to actually make it effective. The thing that they plan that's going to be 3 minutes ends up being 30 seconds because they don't realize just how much work it takes to actually make these things move the way they need to. I mean, it really is a process. I do have a buddy from college, actually, who has been doing stop motion since then, and he has done a lot of really interesting short films in stop motion, and has developed feature scripts for stop motion stories that he wants to make. And he does it really well. He comes up with really off-the-wall creations, really unique creatures, and I think that's something that stop motion kind of allows for. I think that there is something that's a little more off with stop motion, and so I think that these guys are able to get away with things that just seem a little kookier, I guess is a word for it. And certainly in this film, you look at the character design that they came up with here, and these characters are all strange looking. I mean, it kind of reminds me of Rango. It's just, let's come up with the weirdest and ugliest characters that we can and go with it. And I think because it was in the world of stop motion, it kind of seemed okay.
Yeah, I think so too. And you mentioned that it was easier for your kids. I think part of that, the texture that you get, the sort of natural weight that you get with stop motion actually makes it that much more sort of terrifying. Because it does look real. Even the best sort of CG in a CG animated film doesn't yet look real. And so I think that's one of the things that really has stymied my kids on some of these films and did early on, was that they looked too scary, when they were already seeing things, animated films that I thought were scarier. But they wanted nothing to do with this, the dead walking. And my sense is it's because of the sort of veracity of the effect.
Yeah, it's one of those funky things where it's like, there's a blend of the horror, but I don't know. I guess I'm so torn because why does Goosebumps work so well? I mean, it has all the same sorts of things. Why does a movie when I was a kid? What was that movie? Watcher in the Woods. That was a kind of a kid's horror movie that really creeped me out as a kid, but I still loved it. I still totally ate everything up, the Narek and all that wacky stuff that I still remember from that film, or Mr. Boogedy on Disney. Disney had the TV show, whatever, Wonderful World of Disney. I think that horror for kids has kind of always been around, and I think it really kind of, I think it helps kids, get in touch with those emotions and just find that sense of just kind of that different those different elements in the world. And I mean, I don't know. I think that it's good for kids to have little doses of it. I mean, I'm not saying go watch Hostel with them, but things like this I think are great.
It's good for kids. Come on, kids, let's go watch The Shallows. The script by Chris Butler. He started working on it 18 years ago. For me, from the very opening credits, I know I'm in good hands. It feels very much like a guy who understands the horror tropes and knows how to make them funny and squishy and sound good and just plenty of jump scares and lots of fun in the process.
Well, and he knows how to have fun. He knows how to do it for kids. Right from the beginning, you've got, this kind of old horror movie that Norman is watching. And, the zombie sticks his head through the door. And it's like, brains. And the woman screams. The zombie's hands reach through the door. And then the zombie's feet reach through the door. It's like so nonsensical. But it's like that level of comedy that I think lets you know, okay, this is scary, but they're really also doing this just because it's fun. And I think that Butler knew that when he was writing. And he clearly knows his horror. He puts lots of nods in. There's an officer, Sheriff Hooper, Bub the dog, after Bub from Day of the Dead. There's that great Texas Chainsaw Massacre shot when the camera pans over to reveal the big house. John Bryan has the nice dose of the John Carpenter Moog synthesizer music in here. There's that shot from Halloween. There's a shot from Friday the 13th. There's so many things that he's pulling from as he puts this story together, not just as writer, but also as director, to really show, people who are kind of grown-ups and have seen those other things, that this is a guy who kind of welcomes all of that stuff and makes it really fun for the kids.
Yeah, it's also shows that he really has a sense of how to put a childlike identity at the center of this film. I mean, the film is insofar as it's about a kid who can speak to the dead, it's a kid who is speaking to the dead largely because he's lonely and he doesn't know how to fit in. I mean, it's a story of him trying to fit in spite of the cultural norms of his community going against him, which is it's one of those stories that's well trod. I mean, we've seen a lot of these kinds of stories, but in this case, I think it's a script that works so well and doesn't bore us. Because it is at the center of the way it is presented and the sound and the art of the stop motion, I think all of that works in favor of getting this young boy identity film on the screen.
Yeah.
What do you think about these criticisms around the sexuality in the film? It introduces the older brother of the friend character. It turns out is at the end of the film is openly gay, and that caused quite a stir.
Plus, you have Neil freeze framing on his mom's aerobics video.
Yes, yeah. So nods to sexuality, budding sexuality, and so the criticism, and not at all to discount the fact that it's a horror film for kids. There's the dead in it. There are malevolent creatures, and it's discussing adults adults hanging a witch, a young girl who is a young girl. They murder a young girl in that is the story that this whole thing is based on. It deals with some really aggressively adult concepts in some cases. And so there was a lot of controversy around this. What is your take on these criticisms?
Well, I think it's valid. I mean, I think that it's valid to bring these things up. The thing that I guess you say when you look at a film like this that actually brings those things up is, I'm not saying that you have to, like, as a responsible adult, you're going to open up conversations with your kids and kind of have these chats with them. But I think as a responsible adult, I think, all of this stuff is a part of the world. And I think what it does is allow you to, as your kid starts questioning these sorts of things, it allows you to kind of have conversations about it. And I think, I don't know. I guess I think it's very valid to have in a story. And like I said, I mean, I don't know. Goosebumps is out there. There's so many things out there that is kind of horror for kids. So I don't know. I guess I just don't. I don't know. I don't see some of those problems. I feel like there are ways to have these conversations with them. It's something that I always think about. Even just turning the news on in the morning while we're all eating breakfast. And it's constantly murder, death, this happened, that happened. It's all violent, horrible stuff. And my kids are sitting there eating breakfast. I'm like, should I turn the news off and just not have that on while I'm sitting here with my kids? Like, where's the level of responsibility? And, we've kind of decided to have it on. And then, if conversations come up about some of these things, then we will talk about it. And it's, I don't know. It's a tricky level of how you deal with these sorts of things. But these are things that kids are going to be exposed to. So at some point, you are going to have these conversations with them.
And in some cases, I think in this case in particular, it ends up being, I think, a nice open door to have these conversations. I know we've sort of already had all these conversations. And so this film didn't open any new territory for us, but I can totally see how it might be a nice entree. Although I found it interesting that as you note, there was smoking in the script originally, but they cut that.
Right. Yeah, Mr. Prendergast was a smoker, and they decided to cut that and just, I guess they just made him a pill popper instead.
Right? So the scale of social norms is interesting on this film.
It is. Yes, it is.
So anything else you want to say about the craft of the script of Mr. Butler?
I think that he's very sharp at how he puts a script together. Exposition is always a tricky thing to deliver and get across in a script without making it just, screech the script to a halt and have these characters just explain. You've got this kind of elaborate story of the history of this town and the haunting of it. And I thought it was so brilliant to have that whole thing come out as kind of this practice for the school play, which I think is just one of the funniest scenes, because you have just such a wonderfully written theater teacher.
It's one of those, it's like total low-hanging fruit. Like, what a great opportunity to deliver that kind of exposition. Of course, it's going to be a school play. That was brilliant.
It was just fantastic. And I also, another thing I love is the way that he wrote this, shifting the antagonist around, and you never really quite knew who the antagonist was, right? Initially, we have Alvin, who is a very antagonistic character toward Norman. He's not the antagonist of the film. That kind of ends up, initially falling on this curse and these zombies. He's got to stop the witch's curse, and then all these zombies come out of the ground. And so now he's got to stop the zombies. And then I thought it was really interesting that he actually ends up getting paired with his personal antagonist, Alvin, and they are actually in it together, which I thought was really great. And then it shifts, once we kind of realize that these zombies who were Puritans, are kind of there to help Norman out, then the antagonism kind of shifts to the townspeople, and they're all like this angry mob ready to rip everybody apart, and it's really kind of terrifying, almost more terrifying than anything else in the film, really. And then
totally agree.
Yeah, and then it shifts again to the witch and Aggie, and Norman has to kind of keep navigating each of these different, you quote unquote bad guys as he gets to the big boss. And I thought that was so fascinating, the way that we had this shift as Norman was trying to figure out, who is it I'm really trying to stop here? Who is the person who is overall really gonna end this? And Prendergast never really figured that out. He was always just kind of prolonging this and putting it off. Norman was finally able to figure out exactly what that key was and able to stop it for good. And I thought that was such a strong way to write this script. And I think that it's brilliant the way that he says, the grandma says at the beginning of the film, if only these people just sat down and talked about it, they could probably figure it all out. She kind of gives Norman the key right there at the beginning, which is just brilliant. And then he finally kind of takes that and has that moment with Aggie. And it just, that to me was like top-notch quality screenwriting. And I think Chris Butler really knocked it out of the park with this one.
The most terrifying thing for me in this whole film, once you sort of acclimate to it, as you say, it's the crowd stuff. When the mob becomes the angry mob, that then becomes the cultural statement of the film. And it defines what I think, quite rightly, the kids can be most afraid of. And I think it makes a really powerful statement in that regard. The whole scene where the kids run up and they see the mob fighting the zombies, and the kids say, "Oh my gosh, the zombies are eating them," but it's really the mob that is the dominant position in this great fight in the streets. I mean, at no point do we feel like the zombies are, apart from the initial scare, the zombies are not a force to be reckoned with. The mob is ready.
They're trying to escape.
Yes, they're trying to get away, and I find that just a great turnabout. Chris Butler is he's a Brit. He's born in Liverpool. He found this. He started writing this when they were working on Coraline, and showed it to Travis Knight, who was producing that one. And the conversation went something like, Knight read the first 30 pages and said, "Okay, where's the rest?" And thus they start working on this one. So I think it's just a great story.
Yeah, this was his directorial debut. He wrote this, and then he presented Box Trolls. I'm not sure exactly what that means. And then he's now co-writing Kubo, which is going to be coming out in a couple months. So I should say has written Kubo, since it's
right,
likely close.
Very, very written.
Yes, very done. And then very written. And then he co-directed this with Sam Fell, who has directed Flushed Away, Tale of Despero, and nothing since this. But I think Sam co-directed both of those. I think, but Sam comes from that line of co-directing animated features, and I think he kind of has proved that he knows how to kind of put that stuff on screen. I enjoyed both of those films.
Oh, I absolutely did. Despero, I thought, was just lovely.
Such a great film.
As a big fan of the original material, it was really great.
Absolutely.
So in terms of the direction, I'm trying to figure out how to talk about directing a stop-motion film, especially, again, while watching all the behind-the-scenes stuff and seeing it all in time-lapse. Like, for example, you make a note that that this has 2 very, very long shots.
Right, yeah.
Potentially, I guess, the longest in animated film.
Right.
But what does that mean when it's stop motion? When there is no real shot, like the shot is an individual frame.
I mean, it means that animator who was animating that shot spent a very long time working on it to make sure everything went exactly the way it needed to. Both the character, the rigging animation team, everybody had to work together to make sure the shot did what it needed to do. And and then Chris and Sam were kind of overseeing it to make sure that it was kind of telling the story that shot needed to tell, that things were moving as fast as they needed to or as slow as they needed to. And they would be the ones who would decide, we need to redo that shot. We need to do a retake, which does happen. They had shots where they had to do retakes of because the reaction was too strong or too weak, or the eye line was incorrect. I mean, I think that it's a strange way to have to direct a story, and I'd be very curious to kind of be in on some meetings as they kind of review the footage and make these decisions. But I think most of the direction is probably happening. I shouldn't say most of the direction is happening after the fact. I think they're probably there all through it. I mean, they were shooting this thing with 60 cameras at a time. It makes me wonder how many different animators are shooting different scenes simultaneously. And then these guys are just bouncing from room to room, stage to stage, kind of checking on each of the shots and looking at the framing and, I see what you're doing here. That's an interesting thing.
Particularly when you look at the size of the sets that they built. I mean, these incredibly detailed scale cities that they have planned out and laid out in this in their studio. I mean, it's really an amazing amount of work. The thing that really stuck me when you look at the character design, not just the character design, the character manufacturing, right? They were all built around these steel frames, these metal frames, ball and socket joint frames, and then they stick those inside the mold and they make the mold. And to watch these the lead puppet manufacturing folks talk about it, it is an incredible leap of faith not to know whether the character is going to work until you get it out of the mold and finish making it, given how long it takes to make these things and the meticulous kind of nature of it, and how frustrating it is when they create a character that ends up just not working. For some reason or another, the scale is off, the shoulders are in the wrong place, like it just ends up not moving naturally. And the amount of experimentation that goes on in creating a film like this is pretty stunning.
There was a character that they nicknamed the Moo Moo Woman, and I think you can see her at one point. I think she's standing with the guy, who toward the beginning of the film notices Norman as he's walking to school, and he stops and talks to the dead raccoon. Or to the raccoon's ghost, and they just see him talking to the dead raccoon in the street.
Right.
She was, I believe, the character they called the Moo Moo Woman, and they were never happy with that character. That she came out, and they always felt that she just looked like a guy in drag. And they just could never get that character to look right. So she ended up just being a character that they kind of used bits of, like they would take an arm and stick it in a corner when they needed an extra character on the edge of this frame in a crowd shot or things like that. And so they were just, it was kind of a bits and pieces sort of thing. And I think that, I think that goes to show, they try to make these characters, but even then, sometimes they just don't end up right.
First shot is this Dutch angle shot of the brains on the floor.
Right, the movie within the
bite
movie.
Out of it. Yes, the movie within. This is the opening credits of the movie within the movie, and then the red stiletto heel comes back on it, steps on it, and it squishes
and sticks it to the shoe.
And sticks to the shoe.
Yeah. It's pretty fantastic, and I think it sets up right away the just kind of the spirit of this film. It's scary, it's a little bit goofy. We get
it's been antiqued. The film treatment is beautifully antiqued.
Right. It actually feels like an old, scratchy film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just fun. I mean, I think that everything about that just says, hey, we're going to have fun with this one. It's a little bit scary. It's a little bit silly, and it's something that everybody can enjoy.
We're setting the stage for the kind of fear that they want us to experience.
Correct.
Right? But it is fear.
Correct.
We are in a space of fear. And the last shot is what? The family's back together.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the very first shot, but we do see that Norman is sitting there watching this movie with his grandmother. And so we do set up that Norman, he enjoys being with his grandma, and then we find out his grandma's actually dead, and nobody else can see her ghost. And so what's great about the last shot is we get the whole family sitting together, Norman and his sister and his mom and dad and grandma, the ghost of grandma, all sitting there watching a movie at the end. And Perry, Norman's dad, who actively dismissed everything Norman said and fought tooth and nail against everything Norman said about his grandma being alive, now finally has a line where he actually says something that happens to be the exact same thing that grandma says, and just kind of showing that, this character has gone through an arc. He's grown and changed because of this journey that Norman has gone on. And I thought that was a really strong piece in the film here. This is one of those films where our protagonist, he grows, but he doesn't necessarily change so much. This is one where he grows in a way where he actually helps other people change. And I thought that was great to see. I think his dad is the one who we really see change here, as he now acknowledges that, I'm going to actively try to connect with my dead mother who is sitting in the room with me, even though I can't see her.
Well, and that's what's so beautiful about it. It is the entire family that's on an arc, and I really liked that resolution because we see that sure Norman has grown and changed in the way that he presents in terms of his confidence in amongst his peers, his confidence in just being in the world, even his confidence at home. Just willing to continue to watch these kinds of things, even though he knows his mother is not as keen on it. But the fact that the whole family sits down really demonstrates that his journey has impacted them, and I think that's an important note. And that in terms of its relationship to the very first shot, that it is telling us that really it's not so bad.
Yeah,
there's nothing that you can't. There's no fear, even the kind of fear we open the door to here, that you can't conquer.
And he really, it's not just his family. He really opens everybody in town's eyes, right?
Yes, absolutely.
They all see the zombies, and they all see the zombies turn to ghosts, and they all kind of have that moment where they go, oh, maybe Norman isn't so crazy after all.
That's the big awakening.
Yeah. That's great.
Okay, so what about the cast, shall we?
Yeah, I thought it would be good to start just acknowledging Heidi Smith, who actually came up with the character design. And then the lead animators, Travis Knight, who we've already talked about as the CEO of the company, and Jeff Riley and Peyton Curtis as the 3 lead animators. Those people obviously have a huge role in bringing these characters to life. But yes, of course, now we have the voice cast, starting with Kodi Smit-McPhee as Norman.
I think he is a fantastic talent. I think he just delivers a great performance.
He's one of those actors that I think is really fascinating. It's been interesting kind of watching him get older and find kind of the direction he's going in. I haven't seen everything that he's been in. The first thing that I saw him in was The Road, which I just absolutely love. And I never saw Let Me In. I only saw the original of that one. And then Young Ones, which I actually just watched because they did the trailer rewind of that one. And Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So I missed X-Men Apocalypse, but yeah, he's in that one too. So, but I enjoy watching him. He's an actor who is really fascinating to watch on screen. I think there's a lot of internal stuff going on with him, and I don't know. I think that he's going to be going places.
I think so too. I mean, clearly he's already gone places.
Well,
I
yes.
think he's got quite a few credits to his name. One of his early series pieces was Nightmares and Dreamscapes. It was the miniseries, the Stephen King miniseries.
I forgot about that.
He was in 2 of those. He's no stranger to the darker stories. I know you missed X-Men Apocalypse. I am on the record as not liking it. I was pretty disappointed by it as the third outing. But I will say he was an interesting Nightcrawler. He played Kurt Wagner. And he was an interesting Nightcrawler because I was so used to, Nightcrawler as he was portrayed by Alan Cumming in X2. And I was really disappointed he didn't come back. Alan Cumming, I thought he did a terrific job. And so it was a little tough to adjust to him as to Smit-McPhee as Nightcrawler. But in the end, I think he actually delivered a fine performance of a pretty complex character. Certainly complex production.
It's interesting. He is in an Australian TV miniseries called Gallipoli that is about four young Australian boys who join the military and are sent to Gallipoli. That's interesting. I'd be curious to see how that miniseries compares with the movie.
He is an Australian himself, and yeah, he was great.
And I got to say, paired with Kodi, I just love Tucker Albrizzi as Neil. There is something about this kid's just his sensibility and just his sense of being a kid. I don't even know what it is, but he just feels so honest and is just there as a kid. And he talks like a kid and he acts like a kid. And I mean, I know he is a kid, but it's just he feels so authentic. And you don't always find that with kid performances in films. I love him in this film.
I do too. He is a riot, and he is in a whole bunch of stuff that I have seen, which is also odd because I have seen all of, my goodness, why have I seen all of Good Luck Charlie, for example? Why have I seen all of Lab Rats? Go ahead, ask. I don't know. But he's in all of these things, and he is a fantastically comic gifted actor. I can't wait to see what comes from him.
I feel ashamed, but the trailer pick that I should have done should have been Monster Trucks because he's in it. Oh, I just don't want to talk about that one, but yeah, he is in that one. And he's in all the Buddies movies. He is really buddy with those buddies, those dogs. Yeah.
I think it's even funnier that he's in a couple of episodes of Children's Hospital. I haven't seen every episode of Children's Hospital, but my goodness, is that not a show that I would have seen in the lineup of Tucker Albrizzi?
Too funny.
I want to be a part of that.
Well, he's just great. I love his personality, and I think that he just really brings an authenticity. And paired with Kodi, I think the two of them really create an interesting relationship that doesn't even start off as kind of like a best friend sort of relationship. The beginning of that is scripted, where Norman doesn't even want Neil to be around him, and I love that Neil's kind of that pestering kid who kind of just wants to go do something with this guy.
Well, it's the story of, it's worth it giving the odd kid a chance, right? It's worth it. The relationship pays off when you give the odd kid a chance. And I love that. It's so optimistic and hopeful and kind. And he is really the beating heart of the film.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anna Kendrick plays the older sister. I did not know it was her when I first saw this. I had to look and see who it was.
She's really fun as Norman's sister, and I don't know. She just brings this this total cheerleader sense to the role that I love coming out of her. She's not normally like that, and when she gets that way, I think it's really funny. She
didn't do Cups.
She didn't do Cups in here. Did you know that she's well, speaking of animated films, she's in Trolls, which is coming out later this year. I think I'd probably rather watch ParaNorman over Trolls, just from watching the teaser. I don't know. But this has a little bit of more of kind of that Mike and Dave Need wedding dates character sort of a vibe for her. She's kind of that, just a real uptight, whiny character. And I don't know. She seems like she's just she'd be happy to inhabit that other world and is saddled with this world with Norman and her family.
Yes, that's right. Casey Affleck as Mitch, the hulking brute. Older brother.
We should say all of these characters just have such great character design, and he is just designed in like the most impossible way. I mean, it's like it's just like the tiniest waist, just this incredible pecs. I mean, just the football player. One of my favorite moments with him is when the zombie's eyes open after he's hit it with his car and he's holding its head and he kicks the head away and he's just like, did you see that? And they're like, everybody thinks it's because it's a zombie. He's just like, I probably kicked that 100 yards.
He was the first openly gay character in a mainstream animated movie.
And Chris Butler said that the character was explicitly connected with the film's message. Chris said, if we're saying to anyone that watches this movie, don't judge other people, then we've got to have that strength of our convictions. And I think that says a lot. I think that they went to this place where it's not about judging. It's about, talking through things. And, in a time when society could certainly use a little bit more of that and, avoid some of the horrors that go on in our society, I think it's a pretty strong message even today.
I do too. I think he's, I think that if I'm going to have a problem with a performance, it's likely going to be in Mitch. Because Mitch, I think he treads on this line of being the dumb jock. We want him to be the dumb jock. And too often in the film, I feel like he's drifting toward catatonic. And it's not so much Affleck's voice performance, but the actual physical performance of the character that, I feel like I know what they were going for, that this big brooding sort of brick house of a character doesn't move unless necessary, but sometimes he's just there. He's just a piece of furniture, and I found myself getting a little bit lost on him.
I guess it didn't bug me too much. I thought he was fine the way he was, but I can see your point. I think that's an interesting and valid note to make.
Well, thank you. I do feel validated.
Chalk one up for you.
I'm surprised at just how good that felt. Christopher Mintz-Plasse as Alvin. What's so interesting about this? He is the bully, sort of, at the beginning, but only insofar as he acts like a dope bully. It's pretty short-lived, any perceived fear that Norman has of this guy. He doesn't ever seem necessarily threatened for very long.
No, it's not a real threat. I mean, I like that. It kind of sets him up like he's kind of that antagonistic character in Norman's life, even though Norman doesn't necessarily take him on as an antagonist. And I like I said earlier, I think it's so interesting that Norman actually ends up getting saddled with Alvin as they enter Prendergast's house later and have to actually fight off the zombies when they first appear.
Otherwise, I like Christopher Mintz-Plasse. I like his voice a lot. For these kinds of characters, I think he was really funny.
Yeah, I agree.
Leslie Mann and Jeff Garlin as Mom and Dad.
Yeah, Chris and Sam talked about how they really wanted kind of that dysfunctional Spielbergian family. And I think that, having these two as the parents and kind of just some of the improv fights that they have, I think really work to sell that. It's kind of perfect to have these two as the parents. I love them.
I do too. Elaine Stritch. Awesome to see her or to hear her in this. She plays the ghost grandma.
Did you ever see that documentary about her life? It's one of those ones that I had on my list, and I totally forgot I ever wanted to watch it until I saw the credits of this. I'm like, oh, Elaine Stritch, oh, that documentary, Shoot Me, that I wanted to watch. And it totally got me all excited about watching that again.
I never saw it.
I didn't either.
Never saw it. No, I know nothing of it.
Well, I'm going to have to track it down and watch it.
You should do that. What I know of Elaine Stritch most recently is the fantastic 30 Rock. She played Jack's mom, and she was the gem of the series. In a series full of gems.
Right.
But 77 credits dating back to, 48. 1948.
And then we have Bernard Hill as the judge. Very kind of small part, but I don't know. I guess I don't have a whole lot to say with him because his part was so small, other than, hey, it's the captain of the Titanic and King Theoden from Lord of the Rings.
That's right. And don't forget the hit Phylos in The Scorpion King.
Oh,
am I right?
That's right.
Scorpion King.
Yep.
Yeah, it was good to sort of hear him, a few words, and then Jodelle Ferland as Angry Aggie.
The second film that she is in, where she is a young girl accused of being a witch and killed. I think she's also is in Silent Hill. With the same situation happening.
I didn't see it. Did you?
No, I didn't see it. And I think that she was also in Terry Gilliam's Tideland, which I really hated. As much as I love Brazil, Tideland really angered me, which, I think Terry Gilliam was okay with people being angered as long as it created some emotion, and it certainly did.
She's had a lot of nerd parts. Which I think is great, apart from, you already mentioned Silent Hill, but she's the voice of Little Sister in the BioShock games. And she was in Twilight Saga. But I saw her most recently in I think a little known sci-fi show called Dark Matter, that she played 5 on Dark Matter. I think Dark Matter was a really clever show. I'm not sure that it ever got more than its initial 14 episodes. I have heard nothing of it coming back for a second season, but it's a really clever show with a really clever premise, and it's worth catching on Netflix.
Huh.
So there you go.
I'll have to check that one out.
Little plug. Yeah, she was great. That's Jodelle Ferland. This one surprised me maybe more than any others. Tempest Bledsoe.
Yeah.
Sheriff Hooper.
That was one of those ones where I was like, oh, I know her name from The Cosby Show. I haven't heard her since The Cosby Show. I mean, she's been in stuff, but she's one of those people who is a busy enough career. But I think that, she's just kind of in and out of things I just haven't heard of.
I had very little image of her after, that Cosby and Different World era.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's nothing until really this. I feel like I hadn't heard anything of her until this. I was actually surprised she had 25 other credits.
Right. Yeah, me too.
Let's see. Anybody else? We've got Alex Bornstein as Mrs. Hensher, and of course John Goodman as Mr. Pendergast.
Yeah, Alex Bornstein. I have to acknowledge her because I think Mrs. Hensher is such a fun character. I mean, that theater teacher is so over the top and just so big. Alex, I think this is just one of those roles where you get to have just so much fun. And so I think that she really brought it. And John Goodman gets to be kind of a little out there as Mr. Prendergast. And it was fun to see him kind of floating around as the ghost. But I think he's that character that for me might be kind of the Casey Affleck for you, where I feel like they might have taken him a little too far for me at times.
Well, Andy, I don't agree. But I think it's a really valid comment. See, it feels good,
It
right?
does. Yes, it does. Thank you. Thank you for turning that on me and let me get a taste of my own medicine.
Well, allow me to be your quid.
That's fantastic.
Quid to your quo. All right, let's talk a little bit more about getting the thing made. We talked a little bit about this up front, about how the thing got made. I'm still fascinated that they ended up shooting this on Canon 5D Mark IIs. It makes me think, what have I been doing with my camera gear, mostly?
Right. Right. Yeah. No, it's just it's one of those funny things. It's interesting that that's how they shot this with 60 of them, though. It just that kind of blows my mind. I mean, geez. I mean, that's a lot of cameras. I mean, they did shoot this 3D though, so obviously with the 3D, they're going to have to be shooting everything with 2 cameras.
That is what's the word we use? Complex.
It is.
That's the word. That's the industry word.
Yeah, this was the second full-length feature animated film ever to be shot 3D after Coraline.
There are a few very brief shots that showcase for me not just beauty in the art form, but unparalleled cleverness in how they actually get the shot done. The first one that made me lean forward in my chair and rewind to watch it again and again is when Norman rides by the breakdancing scene on his bike and he hits Alvin and Alvin falls and the camera does this little flippy dippy turn as Alvin is falling and ends up under his legs shooting up the hill as Norman rides away. I can't conceive of how they figured that out. I can't conceive of how the team, Tristan Oliver, cinematographer, and team figured out how to place the cameras in such a way to achieve that shot. It blew me away. It blew my mind.
It's very complex, yeah.
I mean, don't you have some of those shots? Don't you have some of those shots in the film? What was your favorite single shot in the film? You've seen this several times. Go ahead. Favorite single shot.
My favorite single shot actually is the really long shot where we are introduced to kind of stepping into Norman's world, where it's the Sean Connery starts going from Russian to English shot, right? Where we're kind of walking along with Norman as he's talking to the air and just saying hi to things. And the camera kind of moves around behind him right up close to his face and then pulls away and continues to spin, but pulling away from him now, as now we reveal that there are ghosts everywhere. And he's actually talking to all these ghosts. The shot is a full 360. It's really long, so you see a lot of stuff going on. You see the whole scope of the town and this road that he's walking along. Plus, you go from no ghosts to ghosts everywhere. And that is a really interesting blend, not just of the stop motion animation that they use, but also of all of the work that they do of the digital set extensions that they add, these digital ghosts that they add. I mean, there's so much stuff going on in that shot. I mean, it's just kind of stunning to watch. It just how long it is and how beautiful it is, and it just flows perfectly. And the fact that, I mean, geez, you go back through something like that and you see a hitch in the animation, and you feel like, okay, well, we're going to have to go do that again. 12 more weeks of trying to get that one shot. I mean, I can't even fathom the stress that I would be under, trying to get those little things right on a shot like that.
I can't fathom the stress you'd be under either. You'd be a mess.
Yes, I would. I'd be calling you every day.
They used a color 3D printer to create the character faces. This is the first animated film to do that. And this allowed them to do a number of things, not the least of which is create a boatload of expressions.
Yeah, I think it was like something like 800,000 different faces.
Yes. Yeah. That is crazy.
And this is color, which was a huge benefit because Coraline, they came up with this 3D color printer, this rapid prototype technology that they were using to actually print, but it was all black and white. And they still had to go in and actually hand paint every face. That's why, like on Coraline only had like 3 freckles because you couldn't, it was so hard to make sure those freckles were in the exact same spot. Otherwise they would like be jiggling around on her face as she would be walking around. This one, they were able to actually print everything in color, and so you have those beautiful colors built into it. And then they do some funky process, like after they kind of pull the face out, they like dip it in super glue or something and then let it dry out, which gives it kind of the shine and kind of that natural skin look, I guess, which really
it's
kind
translucent.
And then you get those amazing shots where, like, when the sun is behind Norman, you get the sun actually coming through his ear, and you get those beautiful things that you'd never be able to get if this was like claymation.
No, absolutely. That's what I mean. In my notes, I wrote, this is a film that really demonstrates that they've achieved, bringing life to these characters, right? It's because life is not just about movement, but life is about those things like the translucency and the glow of skin. It really it felt like a new level as a result of this tool.
Yeah.
Production design, Nelson Lowry was the production designer, Pete Oswald, concept artist, Ross Stewart, concept artist, Ian McNamara, production illustrator, and Trevor Dahmer, concept artist.
These guys were given a mandate to create this world with no straight lines, and you've got these really funky car shapes, house shapes, trees, animals, people, even Norman's nostrils. I love how they're just like, kind of offset. Nothing lines up. I just love the design. I love the way that these guys put this world together. And there's so much detail. I mean, not just in the characters, but just look at everything else around. The detail of a swing, the detail of a label on something. I love the signs all through Blythe Hollow. Welcome to Blythe Hollow, a great place to hang. I don't know. And witchy wieners. I mean, everything just made me laugh. It's one of those things where just going through the town, I just wanted to go back again and just kind of look at all those signs again and just all the little tchotchkes that the people had in their windows, because it's all that just like silly tourist stuff. And those are all things that these guys came up with to sit in there. I mean, it really is a lot of work. It's not just, a production designer has a lot of work anyway in a film. They're doing the exact same thing, filling the space and creating the world. These guys are doing it on a much different scale, and usually they have to fabricate everything. So it really kind of blows me away.
It blows me away too, absolutely, that it's not just, you said it, it's not just filling space, it's creating the space and then filling it.
Yeah.
And that's the part that I think is such a masterpiece. The backyard, all the little statue areas, they're looking at the ghost dog as the boys are out there looking at the dog. I mean, all the little vases and all of the little statues and signs, and it's perfect. It's just great.
Well, and look at like the trees. I mean, when the trees are all kind of, exploding out of the ground and keeping people from getting through, or when the witch's face like comes out of the tree, and just like how, like all the grain detail in the little pieces of bark as all of that kind of forms. It's fascinating. I would love to sit and kind of watch, but I also feel like I'd probably be bored. I'd love to watch it in time lapse so I can see it moving a little faster.
Because again, Andy would be really stressed out.
That's right.
Emanuela Cosi is the storyboard artist on this one. What is the importance of a storyboard artist in a stop motion film?
This is one of those elements that I think is really important. I mean, I wish that I could say specifically like I had talked to them and knew exactly, but my impression from hearing them talk about it is that, this person is really kind of making sure that every shot is in there. And I think that's critical in animation, not just stop motion animation, but also any animation where you aren't going and shooting, coverage from all these different angles, and then the editor gets to play around with it. You're kind of doing that ahead of time. And the storyboard artist really has to kind of figure all that out, work with the team to really know exactly what all these frames are going to be, so that when they go and actually design the sets and design the actors or the characters and design the way that these things are moving, all of it's in place and it's all going to work. So I think the storyboard artist ends up becoming very critical as a pre-production element, just to make sure that they have what they need when they get down to actually making it.
Costumes, Deborah Cook. Love those tracksuits.
I love that they got the idea for Grandma's tracksuits from Estelle Getty on Golden Girls.
I love, again, the behind the scenes stuff about costuming. I think is really fascinating because they're just making little tiny costumes. They're little tiny for little tiny people. And they still look really good.
They're all hand sewn. I mean, they're all authentic, actual costumes. Yeah. Even the shoes. I mean, it's pretty interesting that they go to such detail, but I think that's, again, why it looks so good.
The effects, the use of effects, and let's talk about visual effects at this point, because I know that one of the things that really sets modern stop motion apart is the frame blending that goes on in in this sequence. I mean, you can do it right in Premiere, right? I mean, I think I need a plug-in in Final Cut, but I think Premiere has digital frame building built in. Do you know?
I have no idea.
Oh,
I just know that.
I thought you spent a lot of time playing with it. Is all.
No, I never do. I pay people to do that. No, the animated effects, Andrew Nawrot, Joe Gorski, and Grant Laker, and then the visual effects, Brian Vant Hull. I'm not quite sure how to say that properly, but I think that taking the visual digital effects paired with the actual effects that they're using on set and finding a way to blend all of this. And not to mention, they also blend in like traditional 2D animation into it too. It's fascinating to me the way these guys really took all of the tools that they could. Again, this kind of goes back to James Cameron talking about T2, how it takes filmmakers who understand the tools that they have in front of them and how to use them in the best way possible to create the end result. And I think that this team knew how to do that. Plus, these guys also were able to use the rigging team smartly. And I think, effects, when it comes to finding ways to properly rig things, these guys really mastered it. And, you have to paint a lot of stuff out with the rigging. But, I mean, the rigging tools that they have, I mean, just from the simple swing gently blowing in the wind to the way that these trees were growing, like I said, to things that are exploding or falling, like, everything that's in the air has to be attached to a rig that they are manipulating as it kind of moves through the air, whether it's a piece of dirt falling off a zombie, or whether it's spit coming out of its mouth, or a kid riding a bike, or the cop like crashing over the top of a car and flying through the air and crashing into dad. All of this stuff is stuff that these riggers have to deal with. It's working those guys with the effects team. It's a level of production that I don't fully understand, but I really appreciate that these guys are able to do that in a way that makes these magic movies work.
How'd this one perform in the award season?
It did pretty well for itself. I mean, it got a lot of nominations. It did get nominated for best animated feature at the Oscars and the BAFTAs, but it lost to Brave in both cases. I think a little more importantly for animated films, the Annie Awards. This one was nominated for, I think it was 8 awards: animated effects, directing, storyboarding, writing, production design, picture, character animation, and character design. It did win character animation and character design. The others, it lost to either Rise of the Guardians, Wreck-It Ralph, or Brave. Those seem to be the other films that kind of were sweeping the Annies. I think all strong films in their own way. I think that, I think it still did really well for itself. And I think the fact that it won for character animation and character design really is what gives this film such a unique personality, because that design, I think, was so strong. I think most importantly, this film did get nominated for GLAAD's first ever PG-rated movie that was nominated for a Media Award for the Outstanding Film, because I think largely because it did have that openly gay character in it.
Isn't it interesting, do you think? 2013 Best Animated Feature offered Brave and Wreck-It Ralph and 3 stop-motion features: The Pirates, Band of Misfits, ParaNorman, and Frankenweenie.
Yeah.
Is that interesting? Right on the heels of talking about how there aren't all that many people doing a lot of great stop-motion. And yet here we are completely missing the fact that there were 3 in one year that actually made it to the Academy Awards.
That's pretty interesting.
I wonder if it is, Andy. What are you looking for? I'm on pins and needles.
I just had to make sure that they were actually 3D animated stop motion films, and that they weren't, those fake stop motion. Aardman got a bunch of crap for doing a film, maybe it was Flushed Away, it was supposed to be kind of it was the thing that those guys did. That was actually computer animated, designed to look like stop motion. That's the one that caused the ruckus.
Oh, I can imagine there being a ruckus about that. Mm-hmm. The purist would have nothing of it. Editing, we've talked a little bit about cutting this together. Christopher Murray did the editing. Nothing else to add.
No, I think, the only other thing was just, we already mentioned John Bryan as the composer, but I think I loved that he really kind of tried to tie in nods to other horror scores throughout, particularly John Carpenter's Moog synthesizer had some great little moments that felt very much like Carpenter.
I loved his ringtone. Do 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 do. It was really good.
Lots of good stuff.
Okay, well, I think it's probably time for you to fill me in on how it did by the numbers.
Yeah, interestingly, this movie premiered in Mexico. I don't know why, but it did. It opened August 17th, 2012. The budget for this was $60 million. I couldn't find anything as far as prints and advertising. This film ended up making domestically about $56 million and internationally about $52 million. So all told, it ended up grossing about, $108 million. So it did make a profit. And even though I think Travis Knight said that, he felt like it was not performing as well as he had hoped, it still ended up making an adjusted profit per finished minute of about $500,000.
That's not a bad haul.
Not too bad at all.
Not a bad haul. Let's do it, Andy. Let's rank it.
Yes.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel and you will see all of the films that we have talked about on this very show over the years. And you're going to add ParaNorman to your collection. And we're going to start now. We're going to rank it filmo a filmo. ParaNorman versus
The Long Kiss Goodnight. It's kind of our new Oh Brother block.
I'm going to... I think I would watch ParaNorman first.
I love both of them, but I'm going to say ParaNorman.
Oh.
Yeah, you weren't expecting that, were you?
I'm not at all.
Wait till you hear my star
ranking. I
ranking.
had my scissors out.
ParaNorman or Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Oh, Andy. This is tricky.
Is it?
I think I'm going to go ParaNorman on this one.
I'm pretty torn on this one because I certainly love Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but I'm going to say ParaNorman. I don't know if you saw that coming or not.
I did not. I had my rock ready.
That's right. ParaNorman or The French Connection.
This might be a principled loss, but I'm going to say The French Connection.
All right, you say The French Connection. I'm saying ParaNorman.
Okay, you know what? Good.
I love French Connection. I honestly do. So,
yeah. Oh, me too.
ParaNorman or Brazil.
No way. No way you say ParaNorman on this one. There is no way.
You want to find out?
I do. So badly I do.
Well, what are you going to say?
I'm going to say Brazil.
So am I. But we got pretty high up there, didn't we?
We sure did.
That's right. Didn't see that coming. ParaNorman.
Not at all.
I know. ParaNorman or Time Bandits?
I would watch ParaNorman before Time Bandits.
I love Time Bandits, but I'm actually going to say ParaNorman.
Yes, you are.
I really...
In terms of a movie for kids, like this for me, this has it. They nailed it.
They both are really dark for kids, and I definitely like that. I don't know what it was about watching ParaNorman this time, but the humor, the script, the characters, the just the way that everything unfolded, the arcs, everything really worked for me. I just really fell in love with this movie 100 times more than I did when I saw it the first time. Next up, ParaNorman or Snowpiercer?
I will say ParaNorman again.
Me too.
Wow, every one of these I'm expecting the smackdown. Every one of them, this is too much.
I know. ParaNorman or Casino Royale?
Casino Royale.
Yes, Casino Royale. ParaNorman or Kiss Kiss Bang Bang?
ParaNorman.
I'm going to say ParaNorman too. Look at that. Was that like the first time in I don't know how long where we didn't have to do any rock, paper, scissors?
I know. It's a gentleman's game, Andy. We did all right.
Number 18.
Wow.
That's right. You cracked the top 20 with your stop motion animated film.
I did all right, didn't I, Andy?
You did good for yourself.
You did good.
That's right. Yes, you did.
That was super fun. So that was it. What does that do to your star rating for letterboxd.com/thenextreel?
I am 4.5.
That may be the first genuine surprise I have.
Were you expecting it to be just a straight up 5?
Yes, I was. Where is that half star? Where is the half star of Andy Love?
I feel like the half star is some of the characterization of Prendergast. I just feel like there's something with him that seems a little too silly at times for me. I can understand, the kind of the goofiness of him for kind of the kids and everything, but for me, that element just kind of was a little too much, and I just didn't quite click with it as much as the rest of the film.
Well, I'm going to be 4.5 stars because of the characterization of Mitch.
Touche.
There you have it. Touche.
Excellent.
That was super fun, Andy. That was a good one and a good conversation. Where do we go from here?
Well, we're going to wrap up our vacation challenge with my half of it. We're going to be talking about my favorite end-of-the-world comedy, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb.
All right. That one I look forward to. I did finish watching it. I can't wait to talk about it. You know what's funny? Dr. Strangelove isn't actually in it all that much.
No, he's not. But boy, is he
My memory of it was like
character.
He sure is. That's a riot. Yeah, I look forward to talking about that one too. Immediately before that, we've got a 3 of a kind from the good Steve Sarmento. It's a head, hand, heart montage from Steve next week. So I look forward to that short coming up on Tuesday.
Nice.
I think that's all we've got, Andy. I think I need to go to bed.
What was that? Now I want you to try that again, but with conviction. My reputation is at stake here.
Amazon giveth, Andy.
As Amazon always doeth.
This was some of these 1 stars were really delightful.
Yes, indeed.
In this case, I'm bringing you one from Daddy Bear, who watched this film on January 14th, 2013. He says it's a horrible kids movie. He rented this to watch with my children and ended up cutting it off. We did finish the movie later without the children. I was absolutely disgusted that somebody could promote this as a kids movie. One of the first things out of the main character's mouth was that he is watching sex and violence on TV. 1 star.
Shocking.
You just see things different ways. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. These people. Well, I have a 1 star also by Unhappy Parent who says, not for kids. I'm pretty reasonable with what my 3 and 7-year-old girls watch. We even watch James Bond movies occasionally. I have to say this was not the family movie I thought it would be after watching the trailer. I don't even know where to go with this one because
I think... Wow.
Yeah, I mean, James Bond movies for your 3 and 7-year-old. I mean, I've watched James Bond movies with my kids, and I feel like I constantly have to cover their eyes because of the sexuality and the suggestive things that happen with the women in those films. It's crazy, and to compare that as the favorable film to this as the unfavorable film, I just don't even see that.
Why did they paint the naked lady gold, Daddy? How do you answer that to your 3-year-old?
Right. Why does she take all of her clothes off when she's getting into bed with him?
Oh, thanks, Amazon.
It is hard to believe we have been having in-depth conversations about movies since 2011.
You are telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
Season 5 had some great adaptations, like our Meryl Streep Oscar-nominated performances series. We covered adaptations like Kramer vs. Kramer, Sophie's Choice, and The French Lieutenant's Woman.
It's a real Sophie's Choice between those books. You see what I did there?
Yeah. And I don't think it's quite at the level of a real Sophie's Choice,
We also did Snowpiercer for our Bong Joon-ho series, adapted from the French graphic novel Le Transpersonnage. Man, I love that movie.
We had our two-part 1939 series that included adaptations like Gone with the Wind, Ninotchka, The Women, and The Hound of the Baskervilles.
A number of those 1939 movies, like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, also tied into our recent 1940 Academy Award Best Picture nominee series.
Our naughty children horror series had creepy adaptations like The Bad Seed, Village of the Damned, The Innocents, and Children of the Corn.
For our Hayao Miyazaki series, we talked about his take on Lupin III with The Castle of Cagliostro, plus his own The Wind Rises.
Some great listener choice picks too, Viridiana and The Great Escape.
And for our David Mamet Wright series, The Verdict, The Untouchables, and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Plus, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang from our Shane Black series adapted from Brett Halliday's novel, Bodies Are Where You Find Them.
Dive into the sources for all of these at thenextreel.com/originals.
Every book you buy helps support the show. Check out thenextreel.com/originals today and find your next read.